Jimmie Johnson, 7-time Monster Energy Series champion, all-time wins leader at Auto Club Speedway, driver of the number 48 Lowe's Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. What's it like being home at a track that you're so successful at?
It's fun to be back home. After Phoenix, we flew to San Diego and kind of started a little West Coast family trip, heading up the coastline and hit Legoland and the San Diego Safari Zoo and just various places. So it's been fun. I took my kids out to El Cajon and showed them where I grew up. And granted, Lydia's 3 and probably never remember it, but it was just fun to kind of be back home, show my family around. My oldest has been there to my hometown, but my youngest, it's our first real trip through there. So, I don't know, just fun to go back and see the spots and places and even talk to a few old friends, and then to come to this racetrack where I won my first event. I guess that photo's right there to remind me of it, which is pretty cool. It's just fun to be back. I really enjoy racing here. We've all watched this track age and turn into a facility that puts on one heck of a show. So I'm excited to be back.
Great. Thank you, Jimmy. We'll open it up to questions. Please raise your hand, state your name and affiliation. We'll kick it off with Jerry in the middle there, and then we'll go to Holly and Wolfgang.
Jerry Jordan of Performance Racing Network and KickingTheTires.net. Have you guys, people are questioning your performance this year. Are you at a point where you could get that 7th win here and get it back-to-back, do you think, for the team?
16 years, 80 wins, and 7 championships, and people want to question us? I mean, come on. You can't. I know it's not you. You can't be on top forever. I think that we do have some work to do, especially in the short run. We haven't executed as cleanly as we need to. Daytona, we're running 2nd or 3rd and get crashed. Last week we were a good top 5, maybe top 3 car in the long run, but finished with some short restarts, and that was our weak point. So, yeah, sure, absolutely, we have work to do, but nobody should panic.
Holly?
Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. Hi, Jimmy.
Hi.
I wanted to go back and ask you a little bit about the first win. And did it feel extremely appropriate that it would be here in California that you would get your first win? And just kind of your thoughts when you look back at it. It was a big deal for you and a big deal for the state and the Speedway as well.
Yeah, I mean, if any driver could script their first win in the circumstances, I think they would choose a path similar to what I went through. I think it was my 13th start ever in the Cup Series, 10th start of that season, win on my home track. You couldn't script it any better. And when I look back, I'm still amazed that it turned out that way. I'm still amazed that it's turned out how it has to start with. And when I go back mentally to that point in my life, I just wanted to win a race, and I've said it many times, and I'm very serious about this. With Jeff winning the championship the year before, and they gave me his inventory of cars and equipment, I felt like I had to win deep down in my heart. I felt like Lowe's signed up because they felt that I could win. So there was this pressure. Granted, it was early in the year, but standing there, climbing out of that car, and the minutes that followed that, the relief that came off my shoulders, knowing that I could win. And I'd only won one Busch race prior to that. And all the conversation then was, what the heck is Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick thinking? Who is this guy? So I was very relieved, and that triple chin smile is more about the relief of this pressure that I'd put on myself to win, and I was able to do it very early at my home track.
Wolfgang?
Jimmy, Wolfgang from Germany. Last weekend in Phoenix, we had a race under very hot conditions. Hopefully it will be not so hot here. How do you personally train or prepare for hot races at the West Coast? And how difficult is it to stay concentrating in the cockpit when it's so hot?
Yeah, I think that the hot tracks, hot races, add a whole different element of, from a competition standpoint, car setup standpoint, obviously the driver's fitness, it just really puts us in a tough situation, which I personally enjoy that challenge. I felt great after the race, and it's always tough to have your first hot race of the year. Especially from my standpoint, I've been up in the mountains in Colorado, a hot day has been in the 50s, so to go from that to a 130 plus cockpit temp, I focused really hard on my hydration. My fitness was pretty. It's in okay shape from being in the mountains and as active as I've been all winter, I should say. But hydration's really, the key thing with that. So the years of experience, the relationship with Gatorade and understanding my sweat rate, what's in my sweat. I know it sounds kind of gross and interesting, but there's a lot of important data there to help you understand what to ingest. My guys do a good job of keeping me cool in the car too. So it was a nice little wake-up call that, hey, it's really hot in this environment and need to be ready for the summer.
Do you have, like European drivers, a drink bottle in your car when you drive in the hot conditions?
Yeah, for us, we use the Gatorade in-car drinking system, and it's under the seat in my car, and it holds 120 ounces. So I have a lot of fluid there to drink through the course of the day, and then when that runs out, they can hand me bottles in through the window on a pit stop.
Okay, where are the mics? All right, so we'll go here, and then Bob, Chris, and Brant.
Rich Culbreth, Motor Racing Network. Next week we go to Martinsville. 10 years ago, you and Jeff Gordon had an epic battle for the win in that one. What do you remember about that race?
It's one of the highlights of my career. I'm not sure Jeff sees it the same way because he finished second, but for me, growing up as a Jeff Gordon fan and knowing his success at Martinsville, and then my early starts and years at Martinsville were just so painful. To have that duel to the finish is just something every driver wants. So I'm thankful for the bumpers at that point. We're pretty much in line, because if it was the old Monte Carlo style vehicle, I think it would have been in the turn 4 wall with all the contact that we had. But there's no better way to finish a race than side by side, door to door.
Jim Alexander from the Southern California News Group. Jimmie, as you might be aware, it's been kind of a rough patch for sports in San Diego over the last few months or so. Do you kind of feel that you're carrying the banner for your hometown in some way?
It's hard for me to say, not being in town. I don't have a great pulse on the impact of the Chargers leaving and various current events that take place. Of course, I see it in the news and think of home, and I have so much pride for my years here, and very proud every time I step across that stage, even if it's mispronounced. I hear that I'm from El Cajon, California. So I take a lot of pride in that, and when I do come home and I am around, I can sense and feel the pride that people have for me. And the championships I've been able to bring to the city. So on my end, yeah, absolutely. I'm very proud to have been and hope to continue to provide San Diegans with a big smile on a Sunday afternoon. But I'm a little out of touch with all that's going on currently.
Bob?
Bob Cockers, ESPN. I thought maybe being close to home, you might announce a contract extension this week. Where are you guys at, and should we expect something soon?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're always talking and working on the details. We don't have anything ready yet, but I'm sure we'll announce before long. As you can tell, I'm not overly concerned. I feel very confident we'll get something put together with Lowe's as our primary sponsor, and Hendrick's my home, so I'm not worried about where that stuff will actually be executed, and what point of the season will be executed. But I know it'll happen soon.
Jonathan?
Jimmie, Jonathan Merriman, NASCAR.com. With being here and having the trip with your daughters fresh in your mind, a guy with 7 titles has all the right in the world to proclaim to be the best, this, that, and the other. How does your upbringing and being back home kind of refresh your humility a little bit in what you've been able to accomplish in this sport?
Yeah, I think just seeing, obviously with my situation today and the way we travel and great place we live in Charlotte, and just the means that I have now and the lifestyle I've been able to create, it's so different. And as a parent, I know that I want my kids to appreciate what they have and work hard for the world they want to create for themselves. And my kids are starting a heck of a lot better off than I did from that perspective. I grew up in a house full of love and understanding and highly motivated parents that pushed me to chase my dreams, and I want to give that to my children as well, obviously. But to take them back and show them the street I played on, and I even saw some old bicycle jumps that are kind of eroded away now on the side of the road up in Crest where I grew up. It's just, and they're young, but I feel like they need to see that, and to hear my daughter's, Genevieve's comments about, the house and how small it was and things like that. It's like, yep, that's why we're here. So certainly from their standpoint, it was great to show them around, but for me, it's just such a nice reminder to go back. I do shake my head and find it hard to believe that's where I came from and that I made it to where I am. But more than anything, the memories, and it's just wild how the old memories and stories come up, and I just pepper my wife with these stories. She's like, yeah, I've heard that 15 times, and that one 20 times. So it's just fun to open up those memory banks, or the memory bank, and experience those things again.
Okay, we have time for two more. Chris, and then Brant, we'll wrap it up there.
ChrisKnightCatchFence.com. Jimmie, I was wondering your thoughts on Austin Dillon not getting penalized for his retaliation against Cole Custer last week in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race.
Didn't know a thing about it. Sorry. I was on a bike probably somewhere during that race when it happened. I didn't know a thing about it.
Brant James, USA Today Sports. There's been a lot of speculation, a lot in the news about the potential of restrictor plates coming to Indy, maybe in the future, maybe if it works out in the Xfinity Series, maybe at some other tracks. Just want to get your opinion on how you think that would affect racing. Is it a good idea, right direction? Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's the first I've heard about it. I don't see really any upside to it. We're out of the gas so long there and brake for 2 of the 4 corners. I don't see how it's going to help. I mean, I guess it would put a bit more of an emphasis on the draft down the straight, but the corners are so challenging. I'm not confident we'll create the competitive passes that I assume they're looking for. You need multiple lanes to create passes, and that track just doesn't provide that. So I think taking horsepower away, if you're held up in the turn, less power, the less of an opportunity you have to run up on somebody and to make a pass on one of those long straightaways. So I would fear that it would go the other direction. And again, this is all speculation. It's the first I heard about it, but I assume it's to create more passing because it is tough to pass there. I just don't know how we're going to do it.
Well, what do you think would create more passing?
Well, I think the bogey and what's been looked at in the conversations I've had is just how entertaining the Indy 500 is. But when you look at the horsepower to downforce ratio of an open wheel car, those guys easily run flat around the track. And when you run flat, you can use the draft and slingshot and things like that. When you're out of the gas for 5, 6, 7 seconds and go back to the throttle and there's no recovery, no response, you're never going to pull up. And that's my fear. If it was a very big track with lots of lanes, and you could easily run flat in multiple lanes, I think it would give you that chance to make a pass on the straight. But as soon as what will happen is the leader can run more throttle than everyone else, and it's just gonna compound and be worse the further back you go and make it even harder to pass, I think.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jimmie. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks.